As always, I'm asking you please to share this video or any other videos on my channel that you enjoy. YouTube is totally throttling my ass, it just wants to drown my channel. And so YouTube is not showing my channel or my content to prospective new viewers. And so I'm asking you please, if you enjoy my content, share it with your friends, your family, or anybody you think might get something out of it. It doesn't matter if they're a close friend or not, they could be just a casual acquaintance. But if you figure that my content can help them, please, I implore you to share it. Just send them a link. That would be of enormous help to me, okay? Okay, thank you so much. And now let me get into the video. It's about dating an NPC. The NPC meme started last year, I think, and it freaked the fuck out of some people. It freaked the fuck out of people who actually are NPCs. Yeah, for those 3 people who don't know what the NPC meme is, it's basically the notion that there are some people out in the world who are just basically automata. They just follow a just rigid set of instructions, an algorithm. They're basically robots, yeah? That was the notion of the NPC meme. Yeah, and it was very funny because there were a certain group of people, principally leftists, who freaked the fuck out of over this thing, right? They freaked out so completely that, of course, it was quite obvious why they were freaking out, because they realized that it was about them. It was about them and them espousing ideas without any thought. It's the notion that there are people who are just robots, who are just wandering around the world and don't have any kind of original thought in their empty little heads. And they're just repeating the instructions that they've been told to repeat by somebody else. I mean, who are we kidding? Most people are NPCs, i.e. non-player characters. Most people are just automata. They are just wandering around the world, and they don't live, they merely exist. It's the majority of people, quite frankly. It's only the minority of people who are actually thinking about what's going on in the world. It's a minority of men and women who are consciously trying to figure things out. The vast majority of people are just existing. They're just living their day-to-day. They just kill one day after the next, after the next, and after the next, doing what they're told or what they think is expected of them without any kind of thought. I mean, it's perfectly fine to go through a stretch of time where you're just going through your routine, right? But NPCs are different in the sense that they just do not have any thought in their head, and they do not think about breaking out of the parameters that have been set in their heads by somebody else. It doesn't even occur to them. That's why they are NPCs. That's why they are robots. And quite frankly, we should feel pity for them, okay? It's funny to laugh at them when they try to break out of their programming, right? It is very amusing. But the fact of the matter is that we should look at them as objects of pity, yeah? The same way that we would look at, say, somebody who's colorblind with pity. Because, somebody who's colorblind will not see the beauty and vibrancy of the world around them, yeah? And that's a sad thing. Well, the same with an NPC. They will never see the vibrancy and the beauty of life and the opportunities that life has to offer. Because they will always be set in their strict parameters, in their strict programming, yeah? And that's so sad, but that's the way of life. Anyway, this video isn't a dirge for the NPC. No, this video is about what happens when you date an NPC, which has happened to me. See, when you date an NPC, when you date a girl who is an NPC, well, of course, it's not going to be obvious at first, right? I mean, they don't walk around with a sign, saying, oh, I'm an NPC. No, of course not, She could be pretty, she could be ugly, she could be skinny, she could be fat, right? The NPC girl that you date, it's not going to be obvious. There's no telltale sign on the exterior, right? But you will discover she's an NPC when you start to date her and she starts ticking off boxes insofar as your relationship. Let me explain. See, an NPC girl, she looks at a relationship and has like a mental model of what a relationship should be. And she ticks them off. And she has a certain mental model of what she sees for herself. And it's usually material. She looks at things from a very material perspective, i.e. a good relationship is when the boyfriend that she has earns a certain amount of money or has a certain job. But it has to be the right job. It has to be like, say, I don't know, like a lawyer or a doctor or whatever. Whatever the girl has been programmed to believe is a boyfriend with a good job, that's the job that you have to have. If you have a job that is outside of those parameters, you know, the robot starts like freaking out here. Yeah, it happened to me when I was living in New York, right? I was living in New York and I was a writer and I was making very good money. And I was dating this girl who shall remain nameless. Actually, it's the same girl that I ghosted on. You know that video, you know, that you can find it right here about ghosting on girls? Yeah. Well, that girl that I ghosted on, I was such a bastard, but she was kind of an NPC. Anyway, she worked in finance. And she was doing very well, but I was earning substantially more as a writer, and it freaked her out. I mean, it was something that she kept returning to and grinding upon. The fact that I made so much money as a writer, and in fact, I made more money than a lot of her peers in finance, a lot of the peers that she looked up to, a lot of the people that she was trying to become like. I made more than them, and it freaked her out. And she knew that I made more than them. I mean, she didn't ask me like blatantly how much money I earned, but because of the place I had a big loft in downtown Manhattan and the whole thing, and you know, I threw parties and had a good time, right? And so she knew just by basically by the money I was showing off, by way of the material things in my life, the material possessions I had, she realized that I did have a lot of money and that this was outside of her programming. It freaked her out. Not that I had money, but rather the source of it, the fact that it was writing and not finance, not trading or investment banking or some shit like that, right? It freaked her out. I mean, I could see her the little gears in her head spinning like crazy, right? Yeah. Another thing about NPC girls is that, see, they require material possessions as signifiers that you're in a relationship. For instance, you have to move in together, then you have to get a place together, and it has to be the right kind of place in the right kind of location or suburb or neighborhood or what have you. I mean, you see, it's very strict. That's the telltale sign, the strictness. The strictness, the parameters are inflexible. She has certain preconceived notions of where you should be living, how your relationship should be evolving. And if they break those parameters, she starts to get very nervous and starts to freak out. And if it's completely outside of the parameters, well, she's going to dump you instantly. Yeah, because you're not a robot like her. Yeah, again, the same girl that I'm talking about, the one I ghosted on, because now that I think about it as I'm doing this video, I actually had like 3-4 girls that I was thinking about, but they all sort of like fell on this one girl that I was dating in New York. Yeah, because like, for instance, I remember very clearly, you know, and this is going to get grimy and grotty and personal, but, you know, I'm oversharing once again, but fuck it, you know. I mean, YouTube isn't showing my videos to that many people anymore. I mean, you're my diehard fans, right? So fuck it, I might as well just spill the beans. So anyway, I was dating this girl. I dated her like, I don't know, we'd been going out and sleeping together maybe like a couple of weeks, maybe a month maybe. And I said that, you know, I didn't want to fuck with the condom anymore, you know, because I found it, you know, just, I didn't really like it. I mean, what guy likes fucking with a condom, right? Okay. And so I was like, oh, I don't want to fuck with the condom anymore. And so then she said, and I swear to God, it was like fucking like something out of like fucking HAL 9000, right? I mean, it was like so robotic. She said, oh, then if we have sex without a condom, then we're exclusive. That's what it was. It was like, okay, if this, then that. It was fucking programming, you know, and I still remember that this was fucking 20 years ago. This was back in '99, for crying out loud, right? And I still remember this string of this command string, like out of fucking programming or some shit, right? You know, no condom, therefore exclusive relationship. And she was like, okay, so I'll be exclusive to you and you'll be exclusive to me. It was like, oh man, it was just so fucking wild, right? I mean, it was, quite frankly, it was kind of kinky, now that I think about it. Yeah, it's kind of kinky when you're fucking a robot. Yeah, that's the thing about dating an NPC, man. They're fucking robots, right? And see, there's something about that, because since they are robots, they become very, very predictable. You can anticipate what they want in the relationship long before they articulate it, because they have these set parameters, okay? And you have to think to yourself, if you're dating an NPC, why is it that you're dating this NPC? What's the point of it? Because if you want something very predictable, very, within certain structures, and that never deviates from that, okay? That's what you're going to get when you date an NPC. But see, here's an interesting point. See, a lot of guys watching this video will say, well, I don't want to date an NPC. But that's actually not smart, because sometimes it's worthwhile to date an NPC. It's smart to date a robot. Yeah, let me explain. Okay, so you're dating this robot, this NPC, right? Who's very structured and very, this, therefore that, that kind of thing. And she's got all these rules and structures and what have you. Now, this could be very good for you, especially if you're in a point in your life where you're rather disorganized. Or, more to the point, if you are a man who sort of like is a little bit all over the place. An NPC girlfriend can organize you, can put you into a structure. Now, you might resist this structure, but if you're smart and you realize, you know yourself enough to realize that you are kind of like all over the place. You are not an NPC, but rather you are a PC. You are a player character. You go out in the world and you interact with the world, and you allow that world to influence you, and you try to influence that world right back, right? If you are that kind of guy, it might actually be smart for you to be dating an NPC. And here's something that might blow your mind. It might be smart to have a family with an NPC. Yeah, because an NPC is going to be incredibly predictable. Yeah, and you might say to me, well, coach, you're saying basically, you want me to marry a robot. Well, yeah, she's a flesh and blood woman, right? And, if she's attractive enough and she's an NPC, she'll be a very good mother and produce beautiful children, right? And she'll be very predictable. You'll be able to anticipate her needs long before she's even able to articulate them. You see? And this kind of predictability with the woman in your life is actually beneficial for a certain kind of guy, especially a guy who's got a lot on his plate insofar as his job and his interaction in the world, his career, his business, what have you. I mean, if you have a very complex life and a life where you have a lot of things going, being with an NPC, being with somebody that predictable, might actually be the solution to a lot of your problems. See, you can't think like an NPC. Because an NPC would say, oh no, I would never date an NPC. But a smart man thinks to himself, well, what would be beneficial for me long term? Okay? I mean, of course, short term, medium term, and long term, but you see what I'm saying? An NPC would never date consciously another NPC. Okay? They might not realize that they're dating an NPC, but you see the point I'm saying, right? A true player character, a guy who really is going out into the world and absorbing everything that the world has to offer and developing and growing because of it, and is flexible, right? He can look at this problem of whom to date and realize that dating an NPC prima facie is not necessarily a bad thing, okay? Because remember, when you're dating somebody, you are dating somebody as much for who they are as well as how they affect you. A girl might be an NPC, but she might be a positive influence on your life. Simple as that. A girl might be an NPC and might be very boring and very predictable and this, that, the other, but precisely because she is an NPC, she will be able to give you a stability and comfort that you might really appreciate, that might be really important to you. I mean, remember, I always tell you guys that there are 3 things that you're getting out of any woman. You're getting, in order of importance, you're getting children, domestic comfort and companionship, and sex, right? Now, if you find yourself with a hot NPC, like I was back in '99, this woman that I dated, right? The one that I ghosted on, the one who all that, well, what I've been talking about, right? Well, she was extremely attractive. I mean, just gorgeous, right? She was my type. She's blonde, 5'8", 5'9", something like that. Thin, but nice body, just a great lay, everything going for it, right? And she was all about giving me domestic comfort and companionship, She saw it as her duty as the girlfriend, yeah? She had assigned to herself the role within the parameters of her programming. She had decided, okay, I am dating this guy. We are exclusive because we're not wearing condoms anymore. And I go with him to his parties. He comes with me to my parties. We are boyfriend and girlfriend. We connect. It was like that. And, I followed her life after we broke up, on Facebook and whatnot. And she's one of those people who splatters everything on social media about the life that she's living and what have you. She's got 3 beautiful children, and she's the perfect wife and mother, and she's got a little business as a hobby kind of thing, but it doesn't distract from her number 1 objectives, which are her children and providing happiness to her husband. I mean, yeah, what's wrong with that? What's wrong with potentially being with a robot? I mean, wouldn't you want to be with a robot like that? I mean, quite frankly, I don't see anything wrong with it. You see, it's all good and fine to laugh at the fucking lefties who are NPCs. It's all good and fine to laugh at people who are NPCs and don't realize it. I mean, we're not laughing at them because they are NPCs. We're laughing at them because they think that they are autonomous, that they do have agency, when in point of fact they do not. They are just responding to their programming. They're just going through the programming, the lines of code that have been inputted into their little heads, right? And whenever they try to deviate from that code self-consciously, acting as if they truly were autonomous, that's when we find them funny. But if they're just going about their business, okay, and not being, not getting uppity, not trying to rise above their station as robots, right? They're perfectly fine. And they're perfectly fine, and more to the point, insofar as your life is concerned. And not just dating, by the way, but like in your business and what have you, your career. See, you come across an NPC and you don't belittle them automatically. Because sometimes an NPC person who, as I said before, is a majority of the people out in the world, right? Well, you find yourself with an NPC at, say, your business, your job, right? And that's the kind of person that you want. They're going to be predictable, and they're going to fulfill their programming, and they're going to do exactly what they are told, yeah? And a lot of times, these NPCs are flexible enough that if something unforeseen arises, but is within the parameters of their programming, they'll be able to, solve your problem in your business or career or whatever. You see what I'm saying? And the same with a girl, okay? Don't think that just because she's an NPC, you have to reject her. Don't think that she's just a weekend lay. No. You have to find value in everything and everyone. That's something that, how could I put it? Sometimes you have to, it's all good and fine to mock NPCs. It's fine, and I understand why. A lot of it has to do with insecurities of guys who are not NPCs. The fact that they feel very isolated and alone, and so they want to laugh at somebody who's like a fucking robot, a fucking automaton, but who does not have these feelings that perhaps men like you and I do have, okay? We are not following programming. On the contrary, we're making up our programming as we go along, right? And so sometimes we look at NPCs with a little bit of contempt, but it's really because we kind of like envy their security. We kind of like envy the fact that they have this clear, neat structure that's provided to them by their programming, right? And that often blinds us to the fact that an NPC can be very useful. Useful in your life, useful in your business, useful in all kinds of ways, like a very dependable tool, yeah? And if you decide that you want to have a woman in your life who's very predictable, who's very easy to manage because her input points are very clear, and all you have to do is provide her with X, Y, Z input, and she'll be happy, right? Well, then you have to think to yourself, well, is this smart to build a family with this woman? Because maybe it is. You think to yourself romantically, and sometimes rather foolishly, that it would be great to have a woman who has her own thoughts and her own ideas, that her own woman, she's her own woman who will be my complement, and you know, we will have this adventure through life. Yeah, it sounds great, but you know, a lot of these girls are fucking crazy. Yeah, or a lot of these girls, you know, they since they are not predictable, they wind up becoming a fucking headache for you. Yeah, yeah. I've dated girls who are not NPCs. Yeah, and they were a lot of fun until they weren't fun, until their objectives diverged from my own objectives, until all of a sudden their unpredictability, because that's what we're talking about here. We're talking about unpredictable women. And we got to a point where with the unpredictable woman that all of a sudden, you know, she veered way off course of where I was going. And I'm like, holy shit, she's like way over there. And I don't want to go over there. I want to go on the path that I'm going. You see what I'm saying? So this is a long-winded way of saying, do not knock an NPC girl just because she's an NPC. Recognize what is useful to you, what you need as a man, and then make up your mind.